Okay, grade, here we are again, ready for lesson 11 in language arts. So please turn to page 35, and we have another review to go over. Quotation mark review. All right, did you find page 35? So I hope the quiz went well. Make sure to hand that in this coming weekend. And by the way, I will try to get your new language arts books ready because you'll want to pick those up when you bring your completed quiz, because next week you're going to do a test, and then immediately following the test we need to start a new book. So you need to pick up new books this next weekend. Alright, so a quotation mark review. It is review, so you know these things, but let's go over it quickly. Number one, quotation marks are for direct quotes. When someone is speaking in a sentence, you need quotation marks. You also need quotation marks for certain titles. And remember the way we learn to do this? Titles of things you find inside a book or magazine need quotation marks. The title of a book or hymn book and so on that you would find on the outside cover should be italicized. And we do that by underlining, remember that? But names of chapters and names of hymns inside the hymn book, things inside, you put quotation marks. So two places we use quotation marks: for direct quotes and for titles of chapters and so on. Okay, point 3, single quotation marks are for quotes found within quotes. So a quotation within a quotation, or the name, anything that would normally need quotation marks that's found inside of something that already has quotation marks, you get a single quote. So within a quote, and give a title or another quote, you need the singles. Mark said, I'm looking at the third sentence right here. Mark said, the saying, "Red in the night, sailor's delight, red in the morning, sailor take warning," is alluded to in the Bible. So you notice Mark is talking, and while he's talking, he's giving a quote. So the quote in the quote, use single quotation marks. Okay, just some punctuation reminders. Commas and periods always go inside the quotation marks. So you have comma or period and then the quotation mark following. Number 5, colons and semicolons are just the opposite. They go outside. And so you will have a quotation mark and then the colon or semicolon if there's need for one in the sentence. So in the event that you have two sentences joined together with a semicolon, rather than a conjunction, we learned that you can do that, and there's a quotation mark, so at the end of the quotation, and then you're going to want to use a semicolon, you have the quotation marks first, then the semicolon. So they have an example here: read the chapter, "What's in the Sky," then the semicolon, "list and write a brief description of the 10 main types of clouds." So you have two sentences there that have been joined together with a semicolon. And the first sentence has a quote in it. So there you have the quotation marks, and then the semicolon after the quotation marks. Okay, so periods and commas inside quotation marks, colons and semicolons outside. Now I'm going to erase some stuff. Messy board again. Need the cleaning crew. Okay, so we just have question marks and exclamation points to go over, and they're the ones that can be either way. So let's look at that just for a little bit. Question marks and exclamation points can go either inside or outside, and here are the rules. They go inside if the direct quote itself is a question or an exclamation. So you have the direct quote, and the direct quote itself is a question. Then you would say question and quotation marks. Now, if the whole sentence is a question, but the direct quote isn't really a question, that means if you would pull the direct quote out of the sentence and you would just say it, it's not asking a question. Then you do it the other way. And same goes for exclamation points. So if the quote itself is not a question, but the rest of the sentence is, then you would put quotation marks and then the question mark. Now, the same is essentially true for the single quotation marks. Yeah, let's just look at the part where it says they go outside if. Did you hear Brian say, please pass the potatoes? Annette asked Carl. So let's just look at that sentence. Did you hear Brian say, please pass the potatoes? Annette asked Carl. So the entire quotation is a question. And so, did you hear Brian say, please pass the potatoes? Annette asked Carl. So the Brian is, the quote itself is a question. Did you hear Brian say, please pass potatoes? It's asking a question. But the quote inside the quote, please pass the potatoes, would actually be an imperative sentence. So if you just read, please pass the potatoes, that's a command. You, please pass the potatoes. So that's not a question. So notice how they did this. The whole quote is a question, so the double quotation marks has the question mark inside. But the single quotation mark, please pass the potatoes, isn't a question. And so the question mark is between the single and the double. Now, I don't know, I feel like I'm just confusing you here. So let's go over that real carefully. The whole quotation. Did you hear Brian say, please pass the potatoes? That's asking a question. So the quotation itself is a question. So we're going to keep the question mark before the quotation points. The quote within the quote, please pass the potatoes, isn't a question. That's a command. And so that is before the question point. So you have single quotation, question mark, and double quotation. Okay, the next one. Who said, go west, young man? By the way, that was Horace Greeley, the editor of the New York Times, I think. Check me out on that. The statement, go west, young man, again, that's a command, not a question. But the sentence is a question. Who said, go west, young man? And so notice the quotes are around, go west, young man. But you have the question mark coming after the quotation mark. Because this isn't a question. Go west, young man would actually be a command. So quotation marks, then the question marks. Okay, so let's do a couple of these. So the first part, you're putting double quotations in. No single quotations will be found. And you need to decide where they need to go. Kenneth whooped, we're at number 1. The ice is thick enough to skate on. Let's go. Okay, exclamation mark. All right, so you see the quote. The ice is thick enough to skate on. Let's go. So that needs to have quotation marks around it. So you're obviously going to put quotation marks in front of the word the. So you begin a quotation with the capital letter. And there you go. You got the double quotation. So the question we have to decide at the end, where you have an exclamation point, which side should the quotation marks go on? Okay, so y'all with us? Y'all thinking? So somebody raise their hand. Which side should they go? Well, unfortunately, I can't see you, but I'm imagining hands all over the place. And you are figuring this out. So yes, the quote itself is an exclamatory quote. So we're going to put the quotation marks outside. My throat's all clogged up. I have to get a drink again. Okay, so you got that. Let's go down to the single quotations. So here they have all the doubles in place. You're only putting singles in. Let's look at number 6. Who told the children of Israel, "Choose you this day whom you will serve"? Randy asked. Okay, is Randy asking a question? Yes. So the entire quote is a question. Who told the children of Israel, "Choose you this day whom you will serve"? Now, does he have a quotation within his question? Yes. "Choose you this day whom you will serve" is a quote. So we're going to need to put single quotation marks around that. So, obviously, you will need to put the single in front of the word choose. Single quotation. Now we have the question mark issue. So what you see in your book at the end is a question mark with quotation marks. Now the question is, where do you put the single quotation? Should it come in front of the question mark or after it? Well, how do you decide? You look at that inside quotation. Is it a question or isn't it? So just pull that out of the sentence and ask yourself and think about it. Choose you this day whom you shall serve. Now, did I just ask you a question? No. I gave you a command. Choose you this day whom you will serve. That is not a question, it's a command. So, we don't want the question mark inside. We want it outside. So we're going to put the quotation mark first, then the quotation mark, then the question mark, and then the double. Okay? Now in numbers 8, 9, and 10, you get to do both. So just think through those very carefully. There will be, let's see, I see in 9, the word help is an inside quotation. So think about, where do you want to put the quotation marks? You're going to have some quotation marks kind of all in a row there. So think about that carefully. All right, and then numbers 11 and 12, you're going to rewrite the sentences and put the quotation marks in as needed. Now, number 12, please note, no one is talking there. So don't think, well, the whole sentence seems like a quotation. Well, I mean, maybe it is, but you don't know who's saying it. So you don't call that entire sentence a quotation. There's just a quotation, well, something that needs quotation marks. So there I gave the answer away. Anyway, inside there. Okay, you have some diagrams. You know what? I didn't really look at the diagrams. Well, if you have trouble with the diagrams, give me a call. They are in We Remember. So, I think I see a Jaren. So consider that. And then they write out a diagram on the others. Okay, any questions? All right, you're ready to go. So thank you very much. If you have a question, feel free to give me a call. Thank you.